On today's episode of HireAra Talks Recruitment, I'm joined by Holly Langley. How are you today, Holly?
I am very well, Connor. Thank you. And thank you for inviting me on. How are you?
Yeah, can't complain. It's my birthday today, so in a better mood than most days, which is nice.
Happy birthday. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope that this talk is a good way to spend it.
Yep, fingers crossed. Holly, you run a consultancy called Restack. For the benefit of people who don't know you, do you want to introduce yourself and your business?
Of course. So I previously was the head of operations for a recruitment agency, and I managed everything from the CRM through to HR, through to opening up an office in Germany, compliance, you name it. About 18 months ago, I realized that wasn't quite for me anymore, and I wanted to focus just on the tech and mainly maximizing the tech that we've got, getting the teams to use it. And that's what I did. So I left my job, set up my own company. And since then, I've probably in one way or another worked with probably over 50 clients now, whether that is through like high level consulting or they've come through to some of my training to get them really maximizing what they've got with AI, automation and the existing tech to get them where they need to be and obviously increase that ROI and the inevitably then the GP that a lot of recruitment agency owners and consultants, of course, want to get through.
And it's quite pertinent. We're talking at the moment. Last month was 10 years since I started in recruitment, and it's almost unrecognizable from what I experienced when I first joined, which was here's a spreadsheet, here's a LinkedIn license. If you do enough deals with LinkedIn, you'll keep it. If you don't, you'll lose it. And there's your top drawer for you to lock your best candidates in. How have you seen the landscape change? How have things come on and progressed?
Well, it's a really interesting question, actually. So I had a very similar experience to you. When I started 7.5 years ago, yeah, it was very, very similar. So we posted on LinkedIn once a week, probably once a month. And you just say you had your top job in. And that's what we've got the sales team to do. We would plug the system with rubbish. So I remember that each of the consultants were given targets that said, you need to add on 200 contacts a month, 500 candidates or whatever it was. So you'd go and look through the system and see, yeah, they've added on 200 contacts, but it was hello@johnlewis.com, hello@boots.com. That's not a hiring manager. And that is not where we need it to be. Nobody was really bothered about the system. There were more spreadsheets than you could handle. And fundamentally, you had a CRM, 2 or 3 job boards, maybe, LinkedIn Recruiter and a phone system. And that was kind of it. Whereas now that's completely transformed. And I see a standard business having anywhere between 14 and 20 different pieces of tech within their business. So the tech piece has entirely changed. Therefore, the job of the recruiter has also changed. Yep. So you could have a recruiter who is absolutely brilliant, best people person, great at sales, but unless they understand the tech, they may not be able to perform as well because that's what we need them to do. So we need consultants now who get and understand data, who are good at inputting that and are kind of tech savvy. They've not got to be extraordinary at it, but they've got to understand it and have the capacity to manage it so that their results are right, the automations work, the AI works. And yeah, so not only has recruitment changed, but the 100% the role of a recruiter has as well. I'm not quite sure if job descriptions and job interviews are keeping up with that, but that will come in time.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well, when we speak to agency owners at HireAra, they kind of fit into 2 categories. There's the slightly old school, things haven't changed, I'm not looking at anything changing. Or there's the kid in the sweet shop where they've bought every tool that they can get their hands on to see what's new, what's flashy, and what can save time and drive sort of revenue. I guess when you're engaged by a business, how do you go about identifying and potentially automating the time-consuming processes to actually move the needle and prioritize spend from there?
So yeah, it's a really interesting question actually, because it all comes down to, for me, 2 things. As you just said, time or the ROI, which could also be time.
Yeah.
So when I go and work with a client, and normally what happens from my personal perspective is I'll go in with a client and I'll say, right, we're going to do 6 days of an audit. I'll look at usage. I'll look at your tech stack. I'll look at reporting. We'll look at what you've got going on. We will do like NPS surveys of all of your existing technology. So for example, if someone was using HireAra, we would say on a scale of 1 to 10, how effective is HireAra for client development or for candidate development? Of course, they'll say 10. And if they don't, we then go, right, well, we need to look into that. HireAra, account manager, let's sort this out. So I kind of measure all of that. And then I together put like a bit of a roadmap together. And I look at two things really. What is going to be quick to do, or what is going to give us the most ROI? So when I'm with a client, normally they go, we want results. And that's why I'm there, to get the results, to make things quicker for them. Obviously, they've paid a lot of money for my services. So we want to make sure that comes back in. So I'll start off by going, look, out of these 50 things that I think we need to do, these things are going to take me 2 hours because I just need to go and change these field mappings. So let's go and do that, or you could even do that. And then we're going to tackle these 3 projects here, either introducing a new piece of tech, or doing training on this, and this, or adding in these 5 automations, because we can see that by doing X, Y, and Z, this is going to maximize your ROI. So for me, quick wins and ROI normally in the results of GP or time saving is 100% the way forward, because there's no point spending 3 days on one automation workflow that may never get a response. I'd rather do 10 that they're going to get responses and actions out. So that's the way I plan my time. And obviously it's not always easy, because you're going into a new business. You've got no idea how their systems are set up, what they're like, how responsive they're going to be, what the approval process is going to be like for some of this stuff.
But if we're looking at white collar recruitment as a whole, are there any processes that stick out as this is very easy to automate, and if you're not doing it, you probably should?
I think the big thing is status. So if we look at a standard recruitment agency, they're going to have hopefully a large amount of candidates on their system. Let's just say you're searching for a project manager in London. That is going to pull up, let's say, 5,000 people. So therefore, you've got 5,000 people who you can obviously shortlist that down further. But what we want to be doing is calling the right people at the right time. So if we can do automations that say, right, well, if they have been added to the system, or have had a submission, CV send, interview, offer in the last 6 months, or they have said, Connor, I am actively looking for work right now, they become active. So out of that 5,000 project managers, you might then have 500 people who we deem as active within the workplace right now. So in theory, they're much more likely to be answering your calls, or you might already have an updated CV. So therefore, you can hopefully place them a little bit quicker, rather than calling somebody who just isn't interested. Now, obviously, that is a great way to automate it. And then you've got the flip side of this. You've then got everybody else. Now, my biggest bugbear in recruitment is the word passive. So on a lot of accounts, I see the status is passive because they're not actively looking. And I find that quite a negative word, because if I saw someone was passive, I think, I'm not going to call them. So I try to change that. And sometimes we call them prospects or just candidates. So it's really obvious that
one agency I work in call them live or dormant, which
because they could still be looking. But then that's going to be a large amount of your candidates. So we then filter that automatically further by maybe silver medalists, which would be people who have interviewed or you've sent CVs, but you haven't placed. Again, if they've interviewed or they've had CVs sent with you, you know they're probably going to be okay, or they're going to have the right sort of skill set or experience. So you could filter that down further. And then what you can do is, if you've got these groups of people, like people who you've placed, live contractors, people who are active or in process, silver medalists, and then prospects, you could then do marketing engagements to each of those 5 people, because the way you're going to market an email, an active or in process candidate, will be very different to someone who is a prospect, and vice versa. So if you can continue to break that automation down to those different buckets of candidates, you can then do some lovely automations, and then you can replicate that exact same thing for clients. So you've got active clients, prospect clients, and then like hot prospects who you've met with. And it's such a good way of just filtering everything down so you have that workflow. Now, that may not necessarily be saving your recruiters loads of time. And the odds are, if you're not automating this, it's probably not being done now. But it's a great way just to filter it out. And just like if we look at the live contractors, you can then see who all your live contractors are. Do they match your timesheet system? Who have we got extending? So it's a really interesting automation step. It's takes a while to get your head round, but once you do it, it's doing it for you, and it just means that you've got that system broken down really, which is very, very useful.
And again, we sort of touched on at the start that the modern recruiter, as well as being good on the phone, good face to face, has to be good with the CRM and not treat it as a once a week thing to my managers and shout at me. I guess how important is it to capture data accurately, to capture metrics accurately, and why?
Yeah. So the way I see it is this whole process, it all links together. So when I start doing training for companies, I will start off and I'll say, right, this is how you do a search. And then I'll say, well, if you were to add this data on, you could then do this. If you were to make sure every interview was logged, you could then do this. And every placement was logged, you can then do this. And then over the course of our training, which might be 4 or 5 sessions, we keep coming back to that. So I'm teaching them that if you log this information, you can do more advanced searching. 9 times out of 10, recruiters will bring on a job and they're going to want to fill it fast, especially if it's a hot priority. So we need to get them in a situation where they can fill faster and the system and already use existing candidates to do that. So what I'm kind of saying is, look, if you've got a candidate and you've got their address, you've got their number, you've got their email, you've got their CV and their skills, that's all you need. You don't necessarily need to go to off to different job boards every time because it's already there. It's 100% all about habit and getting them to where that needs to be. But if you can log this information, as I've just mentioned, you can code up people automatically. You can do different automations for that. You can do different searching. So you could then search by everybody who is a project manager in London and has construction experience and specifically has carpentry construction experience, just say. So it's going to really, really help you place more people quicker. And it's going to mean that when you're searching, rather than pulling up 5,000 project managers in London, you're going to have 1,000 because they've been coded correctly. And out of that 1,000, we can then segment that further to who is active or not active or anything like that to get you where you need to be. And I know that right now, if you're a consultant listening to this, you're thinking, but why? Like, I don't need to do this. Your future self will thank you. I see, I work with companies. Some of them have got 2,000 candidates on their database. Others have got 200,000. And I'm telling you now, the ones that have got 200,000, out of that, the majority of them have got no country. I've got a client at the moment and we've got 150,000 candidates with no country. Yeah. And I totally get that. Like it's bad habit, but we need to tidy this up and it needs to happen. So if you're working and you've got different locations, it all helps. On Bullhorn, which is the main CRM that I work on, and I know the majority of other agencies of CRM is the same. If you have a job in London, you're going to want to search for candidates in London. But if you've got a candidate with no address, guess what? They are not going to appear in that search. So you need to make sure that this data all pulls through from the CV or from wherever you're parsing it, so you're not missing out on candidates. And I know it sounds really ridiculous, but if you've got a spare couple of minutes, go onto your CRM and do a search. Go all candidates, address, then do like ascending and then descending. Then you will see which of your candidates don't have an address, and they're not going to appear. Now, if you're doing hybrid working or all your roles are remote, that may not be such a big thing, but I would highly recommend going in and tidying it up and getting that where it needs to be. So then you can manage that. If you don't have the time or the capabilities to do that, let me know, and I can recommend some ways if you can do it, or third parties that can help you with it. But it is well worth the exercise to get consultants placing more regularly and hopefully much quicker.
I mean, even if they are fully remote, though, right? You'd want to at least match time zones, so you're not interviewing candidates at 4 a.m. because no one enjoys that.
Coming on to like AI more, AI, as you well know in your product, is only as good as what you tell it to.
100%.
If your HireAra has got some amazing AI, but fundamentally, unless it's not set up properly, or if you had a CV formatter where you didn't add in any of the HireAra tags that you've got, it's not going to work, right? It's exactly the same as with the CRM. There is tools out there now, and this is going to become even more prevalent in the next probably 6 to 12 months, that you can automatically match candidates to jobs. So unless the systems and the data match up, it's not going to work. So unless your job vacancy contains all the information and your candidate contains all the information, no matching is going to happen. But when this does work, you can add on a job. The system is going to match candidates. You make your cup of coffee and get ready. You've come back to your desk 5 minutes later. You've got 50 candidates shortlisted. You can call those. And actually out of that, 30 of them are all going to be available. So it is really going to be really important and to get this up to date so that your AI and future automations work.
And we're talking about it from like the candidate attraction side, but it's just as important with like business development. I think it's so easy as a consultant to pull the wool over your eyes and say, I've got 80 jobs live. But then you actually look at it, and this one I haven't had feedback in a month. This one I haven't sent a CV to in 3 weeks. Are those jobs actually live?
There's two things I see a lot of the time. One, placements not being added to the system because they're in a spreadsheet, bad habits being used. And secondly, jobs being closed. So one of the first things I do when I go on site with a client, so can I just confirm you've got 2,000 jobs open? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, great. And then I go, okay, so let's just take a look at this a little bit further. So out of these jobs, the 900 have not had any activity in the last year. Are they still live? Oh, no, they're not live. Okay, well, we'll close those automatically. Again, that's a great thing you can automate. So that for me is the first task, because as a recruiter, I get it. You've got so much going on, whether you're 360 or 180, you've got a lot and you need to have that overview. So getting that up to date is crucial. So what I say to everybody is at the end of every day, go into your system, look at your live jobs, and then work out your plan for tomorrow off the back of that. So go in and see, right, we've got interviews going on tomorrow. So we need to chase those first thing to make sure that's happening. I still don't have any candidates for these roles, but we can auto match those, for example. But that's what I'm going to work on first to increase my pipeline and give me the best success of more billings, really. So yeah, this whole overview of that is absolutely crucial, and open vacancies or not is probably one of my biggest bugbears.
I mean, again, right, if we look at the data again, you said that your future self will thank you. And I think there's two sides to that. It's just easier if you do it right first time. You're not creating a massive mess. It's like when you're a kid and you chuck everything under your bed rather than tidying your room. And then the other side of it as well is, I think if you don't have that data tracked, you can't look at how you're performing. So if you don't know how many CVs you've sent and it's gospel, to how many interviews, to how many placements, how do you look at your ratios and how do you work out an L&D plan with your manager?
Yeah.
And then how do you fill more next year?
There's so much to it. And like, let's face it, the majority of people are in recruitment to make placements because that's why we're here. We get commission from it. That's why we love what we do. And it's not that easy. So at the market is particularly hard. So you do need to drill down into things. So you need to look at, right, well, placements aren't great at the moment. That's because we're not getting on as many interviews as we would like. But that's because we're not getting on any jobs. So the problem isn't CVs and interviews. We need to focus on jobs. Okay, so actually we're not set up from a BD point of view. We haven't got a strong enough BD process. It's all of that, and it all comes back together. So having that visibility of the end-to-end cycle is so useful to make improvements. And it's why we're here. And when the market is tough, you can be using the other data, e.g. how many BD calls, spec CVs you've sent out, check-ins, meetings, as other metrics. If you're fundamentally not making as placement as we would like, you can still prove and showcase that your activity is where it needs to be.
Yeah, 100%. It's almost a case of like for a short period of time going slowly so you can go fast later on.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. So I'm going to share with you a bit of a case study. I have a client who they're really new. They've been going for 6 months. There's just 2 of them. And I have been working with them once a week, and they've said, like, they said, Holly, look, we've been in recruitment for years, but we're setting up a new company and we want to make this process as automated as we can. What can we do? And I was like, okay. So we've set up 100 or 2 automations now. And we've automated as much of the process as we can. So we make sure every candidate is coded properly. We make sure every contact is. We make sure every vacancy is. We make sure that we're matching candidates based on the skills. We've got candidate engagements going out, contact stuff. If a client says, sorry, our PSL review is in January, that turns into an automation. We've kind of covered all bases. And it took a while to set up, but they fill 100% of their roles
Which is great.
because we've got the basis. Now, it's not just that. I'm not going to take the full credit. They work really hard and they know when to stop. So they know that their capacity of a business is like 8 to 10 jobs. So they're not constantly bringing on more jobs because they don't need to, but they know they need 8 active live jobs. And when those processes start to come to an end and we get to interview and offer stage, we then try and bring on more. Or they then have a waiting list. I'm sorry, we can't take these jobs right now, but we'll let you know when we're available. And then they try and work exclusively. So they guarantee more and more that those jobs are going to get filled. And it works. Like for a long time, it didn't because we were filling out, but now the engagements were working. The business development processes are working. It's really, really interesting to see. And I'm really thrilled for them that as a new business, that's a stat that we can share. So when we're coming into new clients, and part of their business development pitch is, guess what? I know we're new, I know we're small, but this is what we can offer you, and here's the results to back it up.
Yeah, I mean, I was on a training course a couple of years ago before I left recruitment, and they told me that what is considered good and slightly above average for contingent recruiter is just over a third fill rate. And if using automations, you're getting halfway to 100%, you're going to add 80, 100 grand onto your billions and 20, 30 grand onto your... It's
coming back to what we said about open vacancies. So I often see, right, we need more jobs, we need more jobs, we need more jobs, Holly. I'm like, okay, well, you've got 80 jobs. Like, so we've closed down your jobs. You've got 80 here. Do you actually need more jobs, or do you just need to fill the ones you've got?
Yeah.
And I think that is a slight challenge at the moment where a lot of people have gone into 180 recruitment. Actually, we need to make sure that both parts are working harmoniously here. So if you do have 180, it is essential that your BD team and your resources are working together, like so closely, to make sure that the jobs that we bring on can actually be filled. Because if you've got a BD team striving to bring on a specific job with this client or 25 jobs with this client, if it can't be filled, well, the team don't understand the importance of that. It's not going to work. So we need to make sure that everyone is covered and everybody knows their position and how it all works.
Cool. Yeah, everyone needs to be singing on the same hymn sheet.
And please, can we increase those fill rates? Like, can you imagine if HireAra said, yeah, do you know what? Pay us anyway, or maybe don't pay us, but we're only going to format 1/3 of the CVs just for fun because sometimes the AI might not want to do it. Like that doesn't work as a business model. No. And like same as what I do. Yeah, I'm going to do some automations for you, but yeah, I'll come in and do 3 days, but I'm actually going to turn up on one day. I just can't be asked. Like, it doesn't work like that.
Even if you're paid for 2/3 of the work that you do, like you can get paid more for doing the same amount of work. And
and I suppose when we look at jobs added and bringing on live jobs, you need to assess the quality of them because you may be getting 100 jobs through, but unless they are exclusive or jobs that you can actually fill, it's probably not worth your recruiter's time. So it's really important to make sure that your recruiters are spending time on the jobs that we know we can definitely fill or have got a really good chance to, rather than one job that we think is going to be worth £5,000, but there's one candidate in the whole world who will do it.
When you're talking to a client about rolling out new tech or rolling out a piece of tech or rolling out new automation or even changing a process in terms of how they capture data, I know from experience that there are times when my manager asked me to do something differently and I did it for a day, found it annoying, and then never did it again afterwards. Although I have changed my thinking on that, I promise, if my current managers are watching this. But I mean, what are the challenges you face in the adoption and the rollout, and what are the workarounds you found?
So I suppose adoption and rollout, like the reality is, let's say we're bringing on HireAra, because that's a good example. And we had this recently, actually with one of my clients. And so we brought on the product because it was needed. So my client was using a previous CV formatter that wasn't fit for purpose. It didn't work. So the great thing is we had the sales team coming to us saying, this isn't right. I'm using a word formatter, help. And we said, right, we've got a solution here. It's this. So if you're going to bring on a piece of tech that nobody wants or nobody needs, the odds are they're not going to have that much interest about it. So pick your tech wisely and make sure that the team are going to understand the benefits from it. They may already know them. If not, you're going to have to educate them on that. So that's really important. And I think prepare them for it. What I often see is, all right, we're bringing on a new piece of tech. You've got training tomorrow at 12. There we go. That's it. And the reality is your consultant's never even heard of the product. So the longer you can make the process and get a few people, a few of the maybe more senior people or any tech champions brought into the onboarding process and the buying process, that can potentially help just make sure that uptake is there. And then when it comes to the training, you need to make sure it's bespoke. So we've got an hour-long training session for BD people and resources. And I was like, well, no, that doesn't work. So we need 2 training sessions. We need a training session for BD, a training session resources, and then obviously then one for admin. Because if I was a BD person, I'm not going to be that bothered about X, Y, and Z or vice versa. We need to make sure the right people are trained on the right stuff so they don't lose interest. Now, a few years ago, I was implementing a new phone system and the training session was 2 hours long. I had been waiting for this moment for about 3 years and I was overwhelmed and bored and I knew what was going on. So short, sharp training sessions. Now, my advice is, and the best tech suppliers don't just go, here's your training, bye guys, that's it. You need to keep doing it. So keep up to date with them and make sure you're holding the tech providers accountable and say, look, we need more. This isn't working. Like they're there to help you and get it working as well. So make sure you push back to them on that. I would then advise that after the product has been rolled out, maybe week 4 to 6, ask them, like I mentioned earlier, the net promoter scores. How well do you find this product for candidate sourcing, business development, analytics, whatever the product does? Think of some questions, get the supplier to help you to make sure it's going along so you can get actionable insights and feedback, and then and track usage. Because there might be some people who just don't use it. They might be like, yeah, I'm going to answer 10 in the survey, but we've logged in once. And the third thing is I often I said to some of my ops managers who I work with, look, create like a coffee and chat space. So every Thursday at 12, you're going to sit over there on in the meeting room, open door. If anyone has any problems with this product that you've recently brought on or anything in the wider tech stack, really, come in and ask, and then we'll look into it for you. So there's an open door knowing that feedback can be allowed. And it's the one thing is, out of all of this, something you've probably guessed what I've said is just don't bring it on and forget about it. Keep implementing it, keep tracking it, and then your team will have buy-in. And it may well be that you as a business say, do you know what? Every year we're going to have monthly training on this product, or 6 monthly. So if you look at Bullhorn or your CRM or your phone system or HireAra or LinkedIn, you say like every 6 months, we're going to do training on that. So you have January, you get LinkedIn training. February is HireAra training. March is this, and this. So you kind of have that routine in the business of who needs training on what and when. So it is always happening. That's my best advice. And also things will change. Like you've got a really great new AI product coming out, and it's a new product, and your system has changed massively in the 6 months that I've known you, and it will. So you need to make sure your team are also updated on that. So when you're onboarding and buying tech, you need to be saying, right, HireAra, what are we going to do here then? When you get a new release, how do I train the team on that? So it is fully there to make sure that they're keeping up to date with everything that is going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like the rollout itself is an extension of the sales process, right? You may not be selling to someone who's signing the check anymore, but you're selling to the people who are going to actually dictate whether or not it's a success, which is the end users.
Yeah, and I think like one of the things is if something isn't working, they need to know who to go to.
Yeah.
So like I was with someone a few weeks ago and we were looking at a Chrome extension. And I said, well, where is it? And they're like, I don't know. I changed computers and the Chrome extension was never there. And I was like, well, why didn't you ask or tell us? And they were like, oh, I didn't know what to say, who to ask. And I was like, oh, okay, here it is. I've pressed 2 buttons and it's there. But just having that, who is going to be responsible for overseeing this from a management or ops point of view, so the team knows who to go to, that's really important as well.
And again, you kind of touched on it, but right, about regular trainings, again, I think it's so important because, again, I've been guilty of showing how to do something and then you need to do it. When you go on holiday for 2 weeks and then you maybe don't pick up a role for a week. So then you've changed the process for adding a job to the system and it's been 3 weeks, you end up just doing it the way you used to.
Yeah, and like, don't get me wrong, like this doesn't need to be live training. Like if you are implementing HireAra, for example, what you might want to do is create, right, here is a 10-minute video that is literally, this is how you format a CV, this is how you do an executive summary, this is how you do a spec, this is how you upload it if you're doing that. Then you could create 4 training videos. I use a product called Loom, and I record. It changed my life. So a lot of the work I do is remote for clients. I got a message from someone this morning, said, Holly, can you please show us how to log BD calls and meetings? So I was like, yeah, here it is, talk you through it, done. Now I save all those into a library of resources. So when I complete a project, I go, here's everything you need and more. So you can do that as well. Put that into your shared drive, make a shared Loom account, whatever that needs to be, upload them to a YouTube channel, and they're all unlisted and your team can see it or whatever it needs to be. So they can just come in and access that and self-service. So they're not having to go to you in ops or management every time saying, how do I do that again?
Yeah, no, I cannot speak highly enough of Loom. The amount of I don't want to say pointless meetings, but pointless meetings that it can remove is life changing. And
there's a free version or there's a paid version. It's like £150 a year. Well worth it.
I mean, I think it's a case of treating training like you treat your car, because your consultants are ultimately driving the engine, driving your business.
Yeah.
Similarly, but you wouldn't go years without an MOT or 200,000 miles without service, or at least I hope you wouldn't.
I really do need to put my MOT. Thank you for reminding me. So no, I've done some research. I need my giant calculator out now. Okay, so let's say on average, an average recruiter works 40 hours a week. Let's say times 48 weeks a year. Okay, so that's 1,920 hours a year on CRM, tech, phone, LinkedIn. So if we divide that by 24 hours, that's 80 full days. So over the course of 365 days a year, 80 of those are on your tech. But I would almost guarantee you that the majority of consultants didn't have 80 minutes of training, let alone 80 hours or 80 days. So can we please just generally level up all the training we're getting?
There needs to be like a process to check in for it.
Yeah.
Cool. Needle movers.
I think for me, it's use the tech that you have, buy the tech that you think is going to add value, and or use automations that is going to add value, save time, and give you the results that you need. Use it, get your team using it, because this stuff isn't cheap. There's a lot of tech going on, and it can be really, really overwhelming for the team when they've got so much there. So the more that as a business you have a culture of using tech, improving the tech, all that sort of stuff is going to really get you the success that it needs. Now, I have a bit of a theory that I'll share with you. Because someone asked me a few weeks ago, they said, Holly, what do you see the top billers do? So I was like, I don't want to give a really silly answer like, oh, they use the database. So I said, I actually know the top billers I see within recruitment businesses ask me questions or ask providers questions because they want more. So the top billers in your scenario will be saying, HireAra, this is a great product, but I want to do this, or this is great, but we need to do this now. Or do you know what? Yep, we've got 10 AI tags. Thanks to that, we need 30 or whatever it is. They always want the products to do more because they realize that this is going to be the future of their billing. And across every single client I work with, it is exactly the same. And I normally within 2 to 3 days, I'm like, so I'm guessing you're one of the top people, or you're going to be in the future, because you want more, you want to personally grow and develop, and you get how the tech and everything falls into it, which I find absolutely fascinating. And on the flip side, if I see someone who isn't asking any questions and is on my training going, I worry because I think, are they getting this? Am I going too fast? Is it not quite right? So yeah, if you're a recruiter and you want to be a top biller, be really inquisitive, ask questions, and make sure that you're getting what you need to grow your revenue even more.
Well, again, thanks again for your time, and hopefully everyone finds this interesting and insightful.